It was a peaceful afternoon in Green Hill Park. Birds chirped softly, and the wind moved slowly through the tall trees. Children played near the swings, and old couples walked along the path. Everything was calm. Sitting under a big oak tree was a young girl named Zora. She was just 12 years old. Her skin was dark, like hot chocolate, and her smile was soft and innocent. She wasn't playing with the other kids. She was doing what she loved most, drawing. Zara had a small sketchbook in her lap and a pencil in her hand. She was drawing a picture of the tree in front of her. It had wide branches and little birds resting on top. She hummed a little song while she worked. Almost done, she whispered to herself and smiled. Not too far from her, a man named Mr. Thomas sat alone on a bench. He was in his late 50s. His face was rough and angry, and he kept looking at Zara with narrow eyes. His hands were shaking a little as he held his cup of coffee. "These people, always hanging around," he muttered under his breath. His voice was low, but full of hate. Zara noticed him staring, but instead of feeling scared, she decided to be polite. She looked up and gave him a soft smile. "Hi," she said in her gentle voice. Mr. Thomas's eyes widened. He stood up, his face red with anger. "Don't talk to me, you little thief," he shouted. Zara blinked, confused. "I didn't do anything." People around turned their heads. A few parents stopped pushing swings. Someone lowered the volume on their phone. Silence began to fall around the park. Mr. Thomas pointed at Zara. "I saw her near my bag earlier. She was trying to take something." Zara's mouth dropped open. Her sketchbook fell on the grass. "No, I wasn't. I was just drawing." Mr. Thomas walked toward her fast. His footsteps were loud on the concrete. Zara stepped back, afraid. "You're lying. I know you're tight," he growled. Tears formed in Zara's eyes. "Please, I didn't do anything." Mujigar Jana Hai. Some people started whispering. A few took out their phones. A mother held her child close, but no one stepped forward. No one stopped him. Zara wiped her tears and tried to explain. "I was just drawing trees. I didn't touch your bag." Mr. Thomas didn't listen. He grabbed her sketchbook and held it up. "Is this stolen too?" he shouted. Zara cried loudly now. Her hands shook. She didn't know what to do. "Please give it back." And then, something changed. A long shadow fell across Mr. Thomas. He felt it before he saw it. The air suddenly turned heavy. Slowly, he turned around. His face turned white. His mouth opened, but no words came out. Standing right behind him was a tall black man. His eyes were sharp. His face was calm but serious. He was wearing a police uniform, a badge shone on his chest, and his hands rested firmly on his belt. It was Zora's dad. He looked at Mr. Thomas without blinking. "Is there a problem here?" he asked in a deep voice. The crowd fell silent again. You could hear the wind through the trees. Mr. Thomas stammered, his confidence suddenly gone. Zara's dad walked over to his daughter. He bent down, wiped her tears gently, and picked up her sketchbook. He turned back to Mr. Thomas and repeated slowly, "I ask you a question. Is there a problem here?" Mr. Thomas looked around. All eyes were on him now. Phones were recording. People were frowning. He took a step back and muttered, "I think there's been a misunderstanding." Zara held her dad's hand tightly. Her heart was beating fast, but she finally felt safe. Her father looked down at her and said softly, "It's okay, sweetie. I'm here now." The camera phones zoomed in. And just like that, the calm park had turned into the center of something much bigger, something that no one would forget. Mr. Thomas stood frozen, his eyes stuck on the badge shining on Zora's father's chest. His mouth was dry. The man in front of him was not just a father. He was an officer of the law. And suddenly, he didn't feel so brave anymore. I think you misunderstood, sir," Mr. Thomas said, his voice shaking. But Officer Daniel Carter, Zora's father, didn't move. His eyes were locked on the man who had just terrified his daughter. "Misunderstood," he said slowly. "My daughter was sitting here drawing. You screamed at her, called her a thief. Why?" Mr. Thomas looked around. The crowd had grown. Some were recording on their phones. Some parents had brought their kids closer, whispering quietly. "I thought," Mr. Thomas started. "You thought what?" Daniel interrupted. His voice was still calm, but there was steel behind it. "You saw a little black girl and thought she didn't belong here." Zara held her father's hand tightly. She looked up at him, tears still in her eyes. "Baba, wo Uncle Muj P. Chile. I didn't do anything," she whispered. Daniel's expression softened for a moment as he looked at his daughter. "I know, baby. I know." He turned back to Mr. Thomas. "Did you even check your bag before you accused her?" Mr. Thomas blinked. No, I just saw her sitting close by." "So you didn't see her take anything?" "No, but..." "So you assumed, based on her skin." Mr. Thomas opened his mouth, but no words came. The people around them had gone quiet. The weight of the moment was heavy. Just then, a woman stepped forward. She was in her mid-30s and held a phone in her hand. "I recorded everything," she said. "That girl didn't even move from her spot. She was just drawing." She turned the screen to Officer Carter. The video showed Zora peacefully drawing, Mr. Thomas yelling, Zara crying, the crowd gasping. Daniel nodded. "Thank you," he said to the woman. Mr. Thomas looked like he wanted to disappear. Daniel turned to his daughter. "Come on, Zara. Let's go." But Zara didn't move. She looked up at her dad, her small hands still shaking. "Baba, why did he call me a thief?" she asked softly. Her question was simple, but the pain behind it was heavy. Daniel knelt beside her. "Sometimes people judge others because they're afraid," he said gently. "Not because of what you do, but because of how you look. And that's wrong. Very wrong." Zara nodded slowly, but her eyes were still full of hurt. Daniel stood up and looked back at Mr. Thomas. "You owe her an apology." Mr. Thomas hesitated. He looked embarrassed, angry, but mostly he looked scared. I'm sorry," he said awkwardly, barely meeting Zora's eyes. "I was wrong." Zora didn't reply. She just looked at the ground, silent. Daniel didn't force it. He knew some wounds took time. A few moments later, another police officer arrived at the scene. Someone had called it in. "Everything okay here, Officer Carter?" the young officer asked. Daniel nodded. "Handled. But I'll need this man's statement before he leaves." Mr. Thomas looked shocked. "Wait," I said, "sorry. That doesn't erase what you did," Daniel replied. "You caused emotional distress to a minor. You'll need to answer for that." The officer gently took Mr. Thomas aside. As the crowd began to break up, some people came forward to comfort Zora. "You're very brave, sweetheart," an old man said. "Don't stop drawing, okay?" said another. Zora gave a tiny nod. Her father placed a strong arm around her shoulder. They walked toward their car. Zora looked up at him. "Baba, op mir hero ho." Daniel smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. "And you're mine, Mary John." That night, as the sun set and the park returned to quiet, something else was just beginning. The video from that day had started spreading online. By morning, it would be everywhere. The sky above Green Hill Park was starting to turn orange as the sun began to set, but the storm that started in the park that afternoon was only just beginning. Within hours, the video of Mr. Thomas yelling at young Zora had started to spread online. The woman who recorded it had uploaded it with the caption, "Little girl falsely accused in public. Watch what happens when her dad shows up. In uniform." The views were growing fast. Back at the park, even though Zara and her father had left, the park was still buzzing with whispers. Small groups of people stood near benches, talking. "Did you see the way that man shouted at her?" one woman asked, shaking her head. "Unbelievable. "That poor child," another replied. Some people felt guilty they hadn't stepped in sooner. "We just watched, and nobody helped her until her father came," said a father pushing a stroller. "What kind of message are we giving our kids?" Others were still quiet, unsure of what to say. Mr. Thomas, alone and afraid. Mr. Thomas sat quietly on the back of a police car, his hands on his knees. He looked nothing like the angry man from earlier. He looked small. The young officer beside him was writing in his notebook. "So, sir," the officer asked, "why exactly did you accuse the girl?" Mr. Thomas didn't answer at first. I don't know," he finally said. "She was sitting near my bench. I thought, maybe she." "Did you see her take anything?" "No." The officer sighed. "Sir, you do realize your actions could be seen as racially motivated?" Mr. Thomas didn't reply. His face was pale. He looked like someone waking up from a bad dream. But it wasn't a dream, and the internet was making sure the world didn't forget it. At home, Zara sat on the living room sofa with her knees pulled up to her chest. Her sketchbook lay untouched beside her. The TV was off. Her mom, Alia, sat beside her, gently brushing her fingers through Zora's hair. "You okay, Mary John?" she asked softly. Zara shook her head. "Why did he hate me so much, Mama? I didn't even talk to him." Alia held her tighter. "Some people don't hate who you are. They hate what they think you are. That's their weakness, not yours." Zora was quiet for a long time. "I don't want to go to the park anymore," she whispered. From the kitchen, Daniel listened. His heart broke. His daughter used to love the outdoors, love trees, birds, open sky. But now, fear had crept into her small world. Online storm begins. By nightfall, the video had crossed 300,000 views. Comments poured in. "That little girl did nothing wrong. Shame on that man. Her dad is a hero. The way he stood there in uniform. Wow. That man should be charged. Period." But not all the comments were kind. Some said, "This is being blown out of proportion. He just made a mistake. Doesn't mean he's racist." And some were even uglier. Daniel scrolled through the comments with tired eyes. He had been through this before, but it never got easier. His phone buzzed. It was his supervisor from the police station. "We need you to come in tomorrow morning," the message read. "Command wants to speak with you about the video." Daniel took a deep breath. "Of course," he said quietly to himself. Zara's pain deepens. Later that night, Zara stared at her drawing of the tree. It was unfinished. She picked up her pencil, but her hand wouldn't move. She dropped it and curled up on the couch again. "I don't want to draw anymore," she whispered. Alia looked at her husband. Tears formed in her eyes. Daniel sat down beside them both. He wrapped his arms around them. "We'll get through this. Together," he said. But in his heart, he knew this was far from over. Next morning, trouble grows. The next morning, news outlets picked up the story. Headlines popped up on social media and news apps. "Child accused in park. Dad's reaction in uniform goes viral." Police officer faces heat after confrontation video. Daniel arrived at the police station early. His fellow officers greeted him with mixed expressions. Some nodded in support. Others avoided eye contact. Inside the office, his captain sat waiting. "This video has made waves, Daniel," the captain said. "Command is worried. We may need to suspend you temporarily, just until the media storm passes." Daniel clenched his jaw. "I was protecting my daughter." "We know, but the higher-ups, they're worried about backlash. Just stay quiet for a few days." He left the station feeling angry, humiliated, and helpless. The cliffhanger. Zara blames herself. Back at home, Zara watched the news quietly. Her father's face was on the screen. Her mom turned it off quickly. Zara turned to her mom. "Did Baba lose his job? Because of me?" Alia's heart shattered. "No," "No, never think that," she said quickly. But Zora only stared at the floor. "Maybe I shouldn't have gone to the park." The silence that followed was louder than any scream. The next day started like a storm. The sun was up, but nothing felt normal. The Carter family was already awake, but no one spoke much. Zara sat quietly at the dining table, holding her glass of milk. Her cereal was untouched. Her eyes were tired, not from sleep, but from emotions too heavy for a 12-year-old heart. On the TV, the news played in the background. The video of Officer Daniel Carter and his daughter Zora has now been viewed over 2 million times. It sparked debates across the country about race, justice, and childhood trauma. Aaliyah quickly switched off the TV. Enough news for now. Zora didn't argue. She just sat silently. Online chaos. On social media, the video had become a fire. Some people praised Daniel. This man handled it like a real hero. Others focused on Zora. Look at how scared she was. Heartbreaking. But some people were different. This is all for attention. Maybe she was doing something suspicious. We don't see everything in the video. And worse, another race-baiting drama. Just let it go. Daniel saw the comments. He tried not to, but he saw them. He wished he could protect Zora from all of it, but even his uniform couldn't stop words. Phone calls and interviews. By noon, Daniel's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Reporters, TV channels, podcasts, talk shows. Everyone wanted to talk to him. One email said, "We'd love to invite Officer Carter and his daughter to our morning show to talk about their experience." Another asked, "Can we visit your home for a special feature?" Aaliyah shook her head. "Absolutely not. Zora needs peace, not flashing cameras." Daniel agreed. "Let them talk. We'll stay quiet. This is about Zora's healing now." Zora's breaking point. Later that afternoon, Zora was alone in her room. Her sketchbook lay closed on her bed. She scrolled through her tablet, curious, even though she wasn't supposed to. She saw her face on YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook, in Instagram Reels. Everyone was talking about her, but no one was talking to her. She opened the comment section of one video. "This girl is so dramatic. Why is she crying like that? Nothing even happened to her." Zora stared at the screen, her fingers trembling. She couldn't breathe for a moment. Then suddenly, she threw the tablet across the room. It hit the wall and fell to the floor with a loud thud. Aaliyah rushed in. "Zora, Kiahua." Zora burst into tears. "I hate this. I didn't ask for any of this. Why do they all hate me? I didn't do anything." Aaliyah hugged her tight. "You did nothing wrong. They don't know you, Haiti. You're not the problem. They are." Zora sobbed into her mother's chest. "I just wanted to draw trees." Daniel's dilemma. Daniel sat on the porch, staring out at the street. Reporters had begun parking nearby. Some even tried walking up to the house. He'd installed new curtains, bought a camera for the doorbell. His family felt like prisoners in their own home. His captain had texted again. "Public support is rising. Command may want to reinstate you sooner, but some sponsors are pulling from our community program. We're under pressure from both sides." Daniel felt like he was standing on a tightrope. He was proud of how he protected his daughter, but every action had started a chain reaction he couldn't control. "Am I doing the right thing?" he whispered to himself. A message that changes everything. That evening, as the family sat quietly in the living room, there was a knock on the door. Daniel checked the camera screen. It was a young black boy, maybe 13, standing nervously outside with his mom. Daniel opened the door. "Sorry to bother you, sir," the woman said. "My son insisted on coming." The boy stepped forward, holding something in his hands. It was a small notebook and a pencil. "I saw the video," the boy said. "And I wanted to say thank you to Zora. I get scared too sometimes, but seeing her made me feel brave. He handed the sketchbook to Daniel. Tell her not to stop drawing. Please. Daniel's eyes filled with tears. Zara smiles again. Daniel walked inside, placed the small sketchbook in Zara's hands, and told her the whole story. Zara opened it. On the first page, the boy had written, "Keep drawing. You're not alone." Zara looked up. Her eyes were still red, but this time she smiled. Maybe I'll draw again tomorrow. Cliffhanger. A bigger stage. Just before bedtime, Daniel's phone buzzed again. It was a new email from a well-known *** civil rights. A few days had passed since the video went viral. Life inside the Carter home was starting to calm down, just a little. The cameras outside had stopped flashing. The calls had slowed, but something inside Zara had changed. She still didn't go back to the park. She didn't like loud noises, and she sometimes jumped at sudden voices, but she was drawing again. Her sketchbook, once closed in silence, was now filled with trees, skies, and faces. Faces of people who looked like her. Faces of people who smiled at her. Faces of people who stood with her. An invitation of courage. One morning, as the sun filled the kitchen with light, Daniel sat down with a serious look on his face. Aliyah and Zara were eating breakfast. "Zara," he said gently, "remember the email we got from the Civil Rights Youth Foundation?" Zara nodded slowly. "They're holding a big event next weekend in Washington, D.C. that they want to give you an award. A Courage Award." Zara blinked. "Me?" Daniel smiled. "Yes. For speaking with your silence, for not running away, for holding on when someone tried to break your spirit." Zara looked unsure. "But I didn't do anything. I just cried." Aliyah leaned forward and held her hand. "Sometimes, Zara, crying is courage. Tumni himat nahi hari. That's what matters." Zara looked down at her plate, then back at her parents. Will I have to talk on stage?" Daniel nodded. "Only if you want to. You don't have to say much." Zara took a deep breath. "Okay, I'll try." Preparing for the stage. Over the next few days, Aliyah helped Zara pick out a simple blue dress. Daniel wrote a few lines that Zara could read if she felt nervous. She practiced in her room at night. "My name is Zara Carter. I'm 12 years old, and I believe every kid should feel safe in the park, no matter their skin color." Sometimes she messed up. Sometimes she cried. But each night she practiced again. A journey to the Capitol. The day of the trip finally arrived. A black car arrived to take them to the airport. The Civil Rights Foundation had arranged everything. Flights, hotel, food. As the plane flew over the clouds, Zara held her mom's hand tight. "Mama, what if I forget my words?" Aliyah kissed her forehead. "Furbi sab tumhari bat, samaj jainje." They already heard your silence. Now they'll hear your voice. The event. A room full of heart. The event hall in Washington, D.C. was filled with hundreds of people. Kids, teachers, community leaders, and even famous activists. There were lights, banners, cameras. Zara's heart raced when she saw the crowd. But then she noticed something. A group of kids were holding up signs. "We love Zara. Zara is brave. Draw on, little hero." She smiled. Her moment on stage. When her name was called, Zara walked slowly to the stage. Her father walked with her, and then stepped back as she reached the mic. She looked out at the crowd. Her hands shook. But then she saw one little black girl in the front row, just like her, smiling up at her. Zara took a breath. "My name is Zara Carter," she said, her voice small, but clear. "A man shouted at me because of my skin. He said I stole something, but I didn't. The room was quiet. I was just drawing trees. That's all." She paused. "I got scared, but I'm not scared anymore, because I'm not alone." Applause erupted from the crowd. Tears rolled down Aaliyah's face. Daniel stood tall, his heart full. Zara smiled, and it was real. A voice that echoed. That night, Zora's speech was shared by national news. Celebrities tweeted it. Schools asked to show it in classrooms. Teachers used it to talk about fairness and courage. Zara didn't understand all the noise. She just wanted to draw. But now, people wanted to listen too. Cliffhanger. A letter from the man. As the family arrived home a few days later, Daniel picked up a letter from the mailbox. No name on the front. Inside, it was from Mr. Thomas. To Zara, I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. I saw your speech, and I cried. I've been wrong for a long time. I'm sorry for the pain I caused. T****. Daniel held the letter quietly. Should we show her? He asked Aaliyah. She didn't answer right away. Zara walked in from the backyard, sketchbook in hand. She was drawing trees again. The evening was quiet. A soft breeze moved the curtains in the Carter home. Zara was on the living room floor, coloring a big tree in her sketchbook. Her leaves were bright green. Her sky was a gentle blue. Daniel sat on the sofa, staring at the folded letter in his hand. The envelope had no name, no return address. Just one letter, just one apology. From Mr. Thomas. He had written to Zara. Daniel didn't know how to feel. Angry. Surprised. Relieved. Maybe all of them. Aaliyah walked in, saw the letter, and sighed. You still haven't shown her. Daniel shook his head. How do you explain hate to a 12-year-old? Aaliyah looked at Zara and whispered, she's already lived it. The decision. After dinner, Daniel called Zara into the study. She sat on the edge of the armchair, her legs swinging nervously. Did I do something wrong? She asked. Daniel smiled gently. No, sweetheart. But someone wrote to you. He handed her the letter slowly. Zara opened it with shaking hands. She read the words quietly. At first, she blinked. Then her eyes began to water. She folded the letter back up without saying anything. Daniel waited. Finally, she whispered. He said he's sorry. A child's pain. Later that night, Zara sat on her bed with her sketchbook in her lap, but she didn't draw anything. Aaliyah sat beside her. Tum kia mesuz kar rahi ho beta. Zara took a long pause. I thought I'd feel better if he said sorry. But I don't. I still feel heavy. Aaliyah nodded. That's okay. Forgiveness doesn't always come fast. Zara frowned. Should I forgive him? Aaliyah touched her cheek softly. That's your choice. But remember, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It just means you're choosing peace over poison. A letter of her own. The next morning, Zara woke up early. She went to the kitchen, took a piece of paper, and began writing something. She didn't show it to anyone. Not yet. Later that day, she asked her dad to drive her to the post office. She dropped an envelope in the box. On the front, T. Thomas. What she wrote. We now read Zora's letter. Dear Mr. Thomas, I got your letter. Thank you for saying sorry. That was brave. But what you did hurt me. It made me feel like I didn't belong in a place where I was just drawing trees. That's something I'll never forget. I don't hate you. I don't want you to feel small like you made me feel. I hope you talk to other kids one day and tell them what you learned. That way, maybe someone else won't get hurt like I did. I'm still healing. I don't forgive you yet, but maybe one day. Zara Carter, age 12. A kid who just wanted peace. A ripple of change. Days passed. Life returned to a gentle rhythm. Zara went back to school. Her teachers welcomed her warmly. Students clapped when she entered the class. A few kids asked questions. Was it scary? Are you okay now? Can I sit next to you? Zara answered what she could, smiled when she didn't know how. Forgiveness is a journey. One evening, she sat in the park again. Yes, that park. This time with her parents. and her sketchbook. She looked at the same bench. Mr. Thomas wasn't there, but the memory was. She drew it anyway. A big tree, a shadow on the bench, a tiny girl with her sketchbook, and behind her, a figure in uniform. Her dad. Cliffhanger, a classroom invitation. That night, Daniel received another letter. This time, from Zara's old elementary school. Dear Officer Carter and Zara, we're having a Peace and Kindness Week. We'd love for Zara to come talk to our younger students about how to stay strong during hard times. Would she be open to visiting? Daniel looked at his daughter. Zara smiled. Maybe. It's time to tell my story myself. It was a calm Friday morning. Zara stood in front of the mirror, fixing the collar of her soft yellow shirt. Her hands were still, her eyes focused. Aliyah peeked into the room. You okay, Beta? Zara nodded. I think so. Today wasn't just another school visit. Today was the first time Zara would speak on her own. Not in front of TV cameras or big stages, but in a small classroom, filled with curious little eyes. Her old school had invited her for Peace and Kindness Week, and Zara had said yes. A familiar hallway. As she walked through the school's front doors with her parents, memories rushed back. The smell of crayons, the sound of tiny sneakers on the hallway tiles, the paper stars still hanging from the ceiling. One teacher smiled warmly at her. We're so proud of you, Zara. She just nodded shyly. Daniel placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. This time, you're the strong one in the room. The classroom. Zara stepped into the second-grade classroom. About 20 little kids sat on colorful rugs, eyes wide, voices whispering. Is that the girl from the video? She's so cool. She was brave. A few months had passed since Zara spoke at her old school. The world hadn't stopped, but her world had grown bigger. People were still talking about that little girl with the sketchbook. The girl who didn't scream back. The girl who stood strong, quiet, but powerful. Zara's drawing, the one of the tree, the bench, the uniform, was shared all over the internet. It even reached classrooms in other countries. An unexpected message. One evening, Zara was doing homework when Aliyah walked in with her phone. Zara, there's someone who wants to talk to you. Zara looked confused. Who? Aliyah smiled and turned the screen. It was a video message from a little girl, with curly hair and brown eyes, from South Africa. Hi Zara. My name is Amara. I saw your video in my school. I also got bullied for my skin. But when I saw you, I knew I wasn't alone. Thank you for being strong. Now, I'm drawing too. Zara sat frozen, then smiled. Her story had crossed oceans. The foundation begins. With the help of her parents, Zara launched something new. The Zara Sketch Project. Every child has a voice. Let them draw it. It was a small online platform where kids from around the world could upload their drawings and stories about kindness, racism, courage, and healing. They got hundreds of submissions in the first month. Some joyful, some heartbreaking, all honest. Zara looked at them every night. Look, Mama. He drew his grandfather holding his hand after someone shouted at him. This girl in Brazil drew a superhero. She said it's her big sister who protects her from mean boys. Aliyah wiped her eyes. Tum ne surf ikawaz nahi jagadi, Zara. Tum ne ik silsila. Shuru kia. A global invitation. One evening, Daniel came home with a serious look. Zara, we just got a letter. From the United Nations. Zara looked up from her sketchbook. What's that? They're inviting you to speak at the Youth Peace Forum in Geneva. Zara's eyes widened. Switzerland? Yes. She blinked. But I'm just a kid. Daniel knelt beside her. Beta, maybe. But you're a kid with a voice the world is listening to. A speech for the world. Weeks later, Zara stood on a grand stage in Geneva. Leaders from many countries were in the audience. Cameras flashed. But she wasn't scared. She held her sketchbook in one hand and a mic in the other. She smiled and spoke clearly. My name is Zora Carter. I'm 12. I was once made to feel small, but I learned. My silence could speak, and my truth could travel. Today I stand for every child who's ever felt judged, bullied, or broken. And I want the world to know, we are not weak. We are just waiting to be heard. The room stood and clapped. Some even cried. Coming home, Zara came back home to a simple welcome. No red carpet, just her school friends, her teacher, and the neighborhood kids with balloons and hugs. They didn't care about the UN. They just missed Zara, and she was happy to be back. Final scene, full circle. One lazy afternoon, Zara was back in the park. Same tree, same bench, but this time, she wasn't alone. Around her sat 4 little kids, all sketching on their own books. One drew a rainbow. One drew a heart. One drew a girl in a yellow shirt. Zora looked around and smiled. Draw whatever you feel, she said gently. That's your power. She looked up at the sky. No fear, just peace. Zora's final voiceover for YouTube closing. Calm music fading into soft piano. My name is Zora Carter. I was just a kid in a park once. Now, I'm still just a kid, but I know one thing for sure. You don't need a loud voice to change the world. You just need the courage to speak, even if you're scared, even if you whisper, because whispers, when true, can echo forever.